Hey, how's it going? So I wanted to find a couple stocks that are small market cap, under $200 million or so, and also good buys. Maybe they're beaten down a little bit. Good PE ratios, good price to sales ratios. So I'm gonna walk you through the process that I use to try to find those. Went to macrotrends.net as usual. Click on the stock screener. And then what I do, market cap, no minimum. Maximum, I wanted to find them under 250 million. PE ratio, you want to put a minimum there. If you leave it no minimum, it'll show you a lot of companies with zero PE ratio, which means that they have negative earnings. The maximum, I'd like to stay below 15, but if there are a couple that are pretty close, I'll just put 20 as the max. Price doesn't matter. If you want a dividend, I didn't really care for that, but you could put that there. Everything else on that page looks good. I go to the fundamentals. Operating margin, I want at least a 0. Net margin, at least 0. Forward PE ratio. If you wanted to find a company that is projecting good growth, then you could put a minimum, so it's not negative, right? And then a maximum. Yeah, you don't want it to get too overvalued in the future. PS ratio. Here's where you don't want a minimum, but you would want a maximum. The price of the stock divided by the revenue. So multiply the amount of shares by the price divided by the revenue. Price to sales ratio. So a 1 would be the company is seeing revenue equal to or less than the price of the stock. Well, equal to or greater than the price of the stock. So 1 is preferable. 2 is generous on your part. 3 would be, the stock is pretty expensive unless they have really good margins. Performance, I don't care about that. Other, I don't care about that either. So this will narrow it down. There's 85. I think it started off with 6,000 or something. So that narrows it down pretty well. And then I sort by the industry because I'm not going to be interested in banks or finance or anything like that. And I'm just going to go through them, see anything that interests me. Building, heavy construction. This is actually one of them, Orion's. I'm just clicking with the mouse wheel. Open up a new tab up here. Orion Energy Systems, building products, business services, and then here you can see their closing price, their market cap. You see these are all small caps. PE ratio, anything below 15, you can assume to be pretty good. I wasn't going to click on this business service one, but it does have a dividend yield of 4%. And seems to be doing pretty good, so we can look a little further into that. Flexible solutions is another one I want to talk about. And just keep going through here. Click on anything you want to look into. Okay, and then once you have a couple of them selected, now we can start diving through them. First thing I do, I go to revenue and profit. Looking at the revenue, you can see it steadily increase ever since 2008. A couple dips here and there. And then after that, I go to the margins. And I'm looking to see what the operating margin is and what the net margin is. Currently operating at a 3% net margin. That is pretty common for a business like a construction business or a contracting business. So after I look at the profit margins, then I'll go to the assets and liabilities. I want to look at the long-term debt, see how risky the stock is. And you can see that they're paying off their debt over time. Currently have 10 million in debt. Look at their cash on hand. They have more debt than cash on hand. Price ratios, I'll click on that. The PE ratio is currently at 10. And I want to see what the price has done recently and the sales. If the EPS is out of the ordinary, then you can assume that PE ratio to fluctuate into the future. But if the EPS is relatively stable, then you can assume that the PE ratio will also be relatively stable into the future. And then look at the price up here to see how drastically it's changed. As the EPS increases, the price will increase naturally because the company is better valued. But you're just looking for any externalities there. So it looks pretty stable. PE ratio 10 is very good. Look at the PS ratio. And 1 is the preferable number here. But we can see the PS ratio has been below 1 for the past almost 11 years, which suggests that the company is pretty cheap in that regard. Now the sales are increasing drastically, but the EPS, as we saw, is kind of barely going up. That's because the net margin is about 3%. Then we go to the financials, and we pretty much covered everything from the charts that we looked at already. The main thing I'm looking at here is if they're paying taxes, and which it looks like in the past they were receiving subsidies, but these past couple of years they've actually been paying taxes. And then the next thing is research and development, which here you can see they're not putting anything into research and development. But based on the fundamentals, and as you see the revenue steadily increasing throughout the years, and they're able to be profitable, this looks like a good pick. It's a small cap, so it has room to double, triple, quadruple into the future. Whereas a company that's already worth $1 trillion, you probably won't see it double, that quickly. Not as quick as something like this could. So then we keep going through them, go through each one that you clicked on. And one of the other ones I wanted to bring up the other day, I was looking through some of these. This was the most attractive one, Flexible Solutions International, or FSI. So here we'll go through the same thing, revenue and profit. Revenue consistently increasing for 14 years or so, 15. Margins. Net margin of, as of recent years, 10% on average, which is pretty unheard of for a manufacturing company. Then I go to the price ratios. The PE ratio is 14.30, which is getting to be a little expensive, although the price has ran up recently, has just about tripled from their low there. EPS consistently high. PE ratio seems about right. The PES ratio is a bit high, but if you remember, their net margins were 3 times what Orion's was. So taking that into account, PE ratio makes more sense being above 1. Total assets are increasing. Long-term debt, they're paying down. 2 million currently. Cash on hand, they have 6 million. So more cash than debt makes them more stable. Then we go to the financials, and this is the pretty interesting part here. So consistently paying their taxes, and right here, income tax, and research and development. They're putting, throughout the history of their company, they've been putting money into research and development. And if you look at their revenue growth, the first year, $6 million of revenue, and consistently growing to now $31 million in revenue. And so if you're looking for a company that'll double, triple into the future, this is definitely checks all of the boxes so far. So this is one I'll be adding. Orion is another one I'd be adding, though not quite as much. FSI seems to be the more lucrative option there and more stable at the same time. I clicked on a couple other ones there I don't want to get into right now. There was another one which is more speculative, Romeo Power. They're a battery company and they're brand new, 2019, 2021, pretty brand new. Their charts aren't going to give us too much info, but if we come here, we can see that they're putting a lot of money into research and development. Not profitable, and really no telling when they will be. Although a concerning thing here is they are creating more shares. That's quite a bit of inflation on part of their shares here. If we go back to FSI, not popping up, but they were actually buying shares back, so it was deflationary, which is another bright spot. But this one's a good speculative stock. And then what I'll do is I'll go to their investor relations page. It's a very cut and dry report that they have. But just go through their report. It gives you some insight into the company. Orion had a better one, I believe. The presentation, a little bit more digestible. Give you an idea of what the company does. Shows you the states that they operate in. They do port expansions and maintenance, downstream energy, bridges, marine infrastructure. They do structural development. They also construct pipelines, environmental structures. It tells you the markets that they expand into. And the companies that they've worked for, some high-end names here. And they also do federal, state, and local government projects. And this will detail the actual projects, the amounts, and the start date. And you can take that into account because, what was it? So this contract here, which they should be starting construction now, this was just about their entire revenue of the year 2020. So these three projects here already show their revenue doubling from last year. Oh, whoa. Yeah, these are all this year, so maybe that's a tripling from last year. But that's also going to be quite high operating expense. So the revenues will be up, the profitability, yeah, who really knows? And most of the business, as we can see, well, it used to be more marine, but is now mostly concrete. And then Romeo Power, yeah, they didn't. They're too new. They don't have their financial results on there. But these were just some options I found quickly. I wanted to show you how exactly you can find what you're looking for. Use this tool here, and this little question mark here to the side will tell you what the items mean. Do yourself a favor and go to Investopedia or watch a couple of YouTube videos that'll detail out the market cap's PE ratio and the margins. Definitely understand that. The PS ratio. And that'll help you in your search to find stocks that are overlooked by Wall Street. Maybe they're oversold, or maybe circumstances resulted in them being more profitable than people remember. And you could be an early investor and you could see significant gains. But yeah, that just about wrap it up.